contract is a binding agreement between one or more parties to exchange something of value. The contractor is to build something, to build a project to an agreed design, agreed specification, and within a specified time, and the owner to pay the contractor the agreed sum. You have heard what the chairman, session chairman said. Claims arise on many construction projects. What is a claim? A claim is a request for a benefit for which the claimant, and in most cases, in 99% of the cases, it is usually the contractor believes he's entitled, but agreement has not been reached. Compensation is usually in two forms. One is money, and the other in time extension. Claims, I tell you, can be a waste of time. It can be a waste of money, waste of effort, especially when they are not properly presented. To be effective, claims must be presented in a professional manner with sufficient details. It must lay out the basis of the claim, the causes, and of course you have to calculate in a convincing way what is due. If the claim presentation is transparent, if it is reasonable, it is much easier for parties to reach an agreement and avoid long drawn-out arbitration and litigation. A lot of contractors harm their credibility in providing verbose, complicated, emotionally charged, and overreaching claim without addressing the primary requirements for a successful claim. The primary requirement, these includes to recognize when a potential claim arises and provide timely notice of the claim in accordance with the terms of the contract. They must determine the facts. They must establish entitlement, identify the applicable contract provision or law which establish liability. They must calculate damages in accordance with the contract, negotiate and adjudicate the claims. Types and causes of claim. Let's have a look at these. Claims arise on a construction project for many different reasons. So there are many kinds of conflicts on a construction project that lead to claim, and I'm going to list some of them. Poor communication, delay in the supply of information, drawings, etc., delay in handing over of sites, delay in supply of material, delay in payments and under certifying. And as I said, at the end of it, you will see what it means on typical claims actually in Jamaica. Delay in starting the work, delay in completing the work, work actually done but not measured and paid, loss due to extra overhead on account of extension of time, loss due to idle machinery and idle labor, understanding the terms of the contract, contract documentation, low bids, lack of competence, design errors and inadequacies, inadequate site investigations, differing site conditions, contract termination claims, and there's a host of others, too many to mention. But let us take a closer look at some of these. Let's look at the change claim. Almost every construction project encounters change, but even more so in Jamaica, and I had to think very hard to tell you this fact. Almost every construction project encounters change. But if you look at the Caribbean, we have more claims in Jamaica, mainly because I think our designs are more incomplete in Jamaica than in the rest of the Caribbean. My own company would have put in bid in St. Lucia, in Dominica, Trinidad, and drawings and specs are the most inadequate in Jamaica. Whether it's a change to the scope of the work, a revision to the specification, or an impact to the means and method of performing the work, changes can significantly impact a project's cost and schedule. Due to change in work scope or change in design, the quantity of work may increase or decrease. And if it is the work that the contractor puts his profit in, and it's easy to understand, then he will be forced to defend that claim to the last dollar. Then there's the delay claim. If the contractor is delayed by an act of omission of the owner or anyone representing the owner, or by an act or as a result of an event for which the contractor is not responsible, then the contractor is entitled to an extension of time if notice is given in accordance with the contract. Then there's a contractual claim. Contractual claim concerns matters with consideration to the contract itself. This includes any disagreement on the responsibility or liability of some parts that are not included in the documents. The main reasons for these types of claim is, of course, poorly written contract documents. Then one that sometimes contractors seldom claim, differing, a very vexed claim worldwide and run client into a lot of extra money, the differing site conditions. If the contractor discovers subsurface or other physical conditions at the place of work which are materially different from those indicated in the contract documents, or those ordinarily found to exist, then the contractor is required to provide notice in writing to the owner of such condition within a specified time after the conditions are first observed, and of course may claim for extra time and extra cost. And I outline it to you. There's a drawing that says the place is substantially earth, or there's no clay. And you get on site and you suddenly find that the place is rocky or it is clay. So it's gonna seriously impact not just on your time, but on your productivity costs. Then there's the contract termination claims. And there are many cases, some pending right now, incidentally. When contract termination has occurred before the contractor has begun the work, the contractor may be entitled to recover the loss of expected profit or the difference between the contract price and the anticipated cost of the work. If the owner has terminated the contract after the contractor has begun the work, the contractor may be entitled to recover the loss. Then there's the defective specification claims. In almost every construction contract, the owner furnishes the contract specification to explain the contract provisions. Unfortunately, in many cases, specification at times does just the opposite. And I'll give you some examples. And instead causes confusion. When this occurs, unless the contractor and the client can resolve the matter, a claim will result. Let's give you 3 examples of this. 1, the use of excavated material as fill in building roads or under building, which turns out to be unsuitable. The document says cut and fill can't be used. You're going to have to import material, sometimes millions and millions of extra costs, especially if it's like a lot of fills in highways. The use of excavated material in pond lining, where you're expected to excavate and line a pond So it expected to be impervious. It turned out to be not so. Another one, concrete works, and this concerns our chairman. Unclear specification resulting in shorter lifespan of these works. And this is a pet subject for me, curbs and pavements. Within 6 months, your curbs start to fall apart, even though you obey the specification. Within 6 months, your sidewalks start to crumble. I mentioned 6 months because 6 months is normal maintenance period. Then the client say to you, go fix it because it is you. And then you are saying, sorry, sir, I have built that to specification. So that's the defective specification, 3 examples. We want to look at standard components of claims. A claim will have no chance of success if it is not grounded in the contract. This is not an equity business. This is what you sign to. You sign to. Someone mentioned today that there's a liquidated damage clause, but there's never normally an early completion clause. Ideally, the components should be 1, introduction. I'll give you a little details on that. 2, it must set out the contractual basis. 3, it must set out the details of the claim. And 4, it must give supporting documentation. The introduction, as the person who is responsible for the final assessment may not be totally familiar. They could be the judge, the lawyer, the vice president, or whoever of the corporation. They will not be familiar with the contract. It is important to give background details in order to make the document a complete entity in itself. The minimum required detail should be as follows. Names of the parties to the contract, details of the condition of contract, the tender date, the original contract sum, dates for possession and completion, details of extension of time, details and amount of money claimed, details of extension of time awarded, details of amount certified. Contractual basis. It is important to state precisely about the contractual basis of the claim. The claim will fall under one or both of the following categories. The first one, a claim for loss of expense or extra costs flowing from a remedy contained within the condition itself. 2, a claim for damages resultant upon breach of the express or implied terms of the contract or the law. It is essential to state clearly the event or events pertaining to the claim. It is also good practice in this section of the claim to make reference to notifications which have been made during the contract. Details of the claim. This section of the claim should provide the complete details as much as possible of all delays with reason, responsibility and effect on progress as a whole. And here I think earlier presenter spoke to you about the importance of programs. Assistance can be gained to prove this cause and effect by the use of your program, especially your critical path program. Evaluation of your claims. In most cases, the evaluation will fall into 2 sections. Costs associated with prolongation, that's time, and costs associated with disruption, that's 2 possibilities. Costs due to prolongation. Primarily, construction activities may be delayed, but not disrupted. Duration of activities may be postponed in commencement, hindered or slowed down in achieving regular progress, and hence prolong the completion of the project. The following are some of the expenses that would be due in this case. Remuneration of site staff, plant and scaffolding retained on site, temporary power distribution and lighting, of course, to maintain them, temporary office and storage accommodation, additional insurance and bonds, attendance on subcontractors, increased costs due to inflation of labor, plant and material, watching, lighting and protection, safety, welfare measures, site maintenance, time-related temporary works, and of course, head office overheads. Then there's the cost due to disruption. Delays and prolongation are time-related, but disruption is a resource-related claim. Construction activities may be disrupted in regular progress or logical sequence, but the experience of disruption of progress may not result in a delayed completion of activities. It is often that more resources or different type of equipment have to be committed to the activity to achieve completion in time. The following are some examples of disruption. Fragmented working, that is lack of utilization of resources. You can't get to use your equipment. Reduced productivity on planned resources. Planned production from increased resources. And I mentioned supporting documentation. Any well-prepared claim has a large volume of backup documentation to substantiate the case, such as correspondence, records, photographs, videos, and programs. Inclusion of all of these details in the main body will make the presentation bulky and distract the readers. Hence, it is advisable you have them as an appendix to the contract. The pathways to claim resolution. Very briefly, step one, it was mentioned before, adjudication. And this is really having an arbiter during the construction process. You're going to mention it? Right, so won't go into detail. The second one, where that fails, is arbitration. When it fails, you go to arbitration, which is usually after the construction process. And the third one, where that fails again, you're not getting anywhere, you take it to court. So that is called litigation. And that is usually after step 1 and 2 would have failed. Now, let's look briefly at examples of claim settlements. It's interesting. Case 1, arbitration between, these are actual cases, Jamaican cases. Arbitration between Construction Developers Associates versus the Ministry of Education in 2007. The contract was for the refurbishment of Old Harbor High School for approximately $50 million. And the claim was in relation to labor fluctuation amounting to approximately $12 million. The award, this was settled for $12 million. That was the claim from the contractor. Other aspects of the dispute are still being pursued in courts, and this is after 2007. The arbitrator was Mr. Dennis Morrison, QC, now the president of the Court of Appeal. Case 2, arbitration between Construction Developers Association versus NEM Insurance Company. The dispute involved a claim made by the contractor for a sewage treatment plant in Maypen, which was destroyed by fire and was denied by the insurers. The contract was for $180 million. The claim was for $13 million. The award was $13 million. The arbitrator this time was Mr. Maurice Toppy. Case 3, arbitration between Peel & Sons versus Caribbean Cement Company in 2008. This dispute involves claim made by Peel & Sons for delay of information, lack of information. The contract sum was for $800 million. The claim was for approximately $250 million. The settlement was for approximately $150 million. This one concerned the National Works Agency in 2005. Contracts for the rehabilitation of flood damaged road in St. Mary, valuing $104 million. And I think the contractor in this case was YP Seaton. Dispute involved a claim made by the contractor for costs due to suspension of the works by the contractor for late payment by the employer and eventual termination of services by the contractor. He stopped working, suspended, in fact, terminated the contract. He claimed that he lost $37 million. An award was made for approximately $35 million in favor of the contractor. The adjudicator, it didn't get, I think, to arbitration. Well, I think the adjudicator, arbitrator, is 3 persons down from my left, Mr. Robert Evans, who will present to you shortly. Final case, to make the point, claim from Pill & Sons to the government of Jamaica in 2005 for delays due to site access, that's land acquisition, famous claim, government signed the job, don't own the land, relocation of utilities, water commission in the way, flow in the way, everybody in the way, design changes, late instructions. Contract sum was for approximately 80 million US. The contractor claimed for approximately 20 million for these failings by the client. This did not quite get to arbitration. The government of Jamaica settled for 10 million US dollars. Claims in the construction industry can be a very vexed and very expensive issue.